Hi, my name is Ken Hughes and this video is all about joy. A lot of marketing and branding companies use FOMO, the fear of missing out, as a kind of a trigger to buy. So let's say you're buying an airline ticket and it says, oh, only 3 or 4 seats left at this price. So you click, you're going on to the Ticketmaster or the theater and you're looking at tickets. Oh my God, only 4 or 5 left. And they're using fear, of course. Fear of missing out is that trigger to purchase. And we do it all the time on doom scrolling. You're looking at what other people are doing and thinking, oh, I should be doing that. I should. And so in society, fear of missing out is a real thing, but there is an antidote. And the antidote is the joy of missing out, JOMO. And in that, there's a wonderful potential for your brand and your business to better connect with customers, understanding their yearning for joy, their meaning, their purpose, and what those values are. And I want to talk about 2 of those things today. One of them is about taking a break, the idea of space and how consumers value space and time. And the second one is about the idea of looking inward. So let's take the first one first. What is taking a break? How important is taking a break? Well, we're all in a hamster wheel. We always are. And when the pandemic came along, it gave us a little bit of a break and we thought, oh, hang on, here's a wonderful moment where we can all step back. We understood the value of connection. It was more important to connect with their friends and the family and our loved ones, and wasn't this beautiful? And we were going to hold some of this new realization forward when the pandemic finished. Did we? No, we didn't. We've all got right back on the hamster wheel and the society is running as faster as it ever was before. Now, that's not to say that the consumers don't yearn, you included probably, for a bit of that silence again, a bit of that taking a break, that breath, that moment. And so consumers do value time and space, time for self. And so it's a question for you as a brand is, well, how can we give that to customers? Let me tell you a really, really simple story. There's 2 lumberjacks that go into the forest every morning. They start at the same time in the morning, chopping trees all day, and they end at the same time in the evening. The only difference is that one of the lumberjacks goes and leaves the forest every day for an hour. The other guy has no idea where he goes. And he comes back and he starts work again. And the frustrating thing is, even though they start work at the same time every day and they end work at the same time every day, the guy who leaves for an hour chops more trees than his colleague. And so day after day after day this happens, and the colleague gets more and more frustrated, thinking, how is this happening? I'm here for an hour longer every day and yet he is cutting more trees than me. And eventually he breaks and he says, how are you cutting more trees than me? You leave for an hour every day. We work the same number of hours. What's happening? And very simply, he puts down his axe and he says, oh, I go home for an hour every day. I take a break and I sharpen my axe. And this idea that like breaks are healthy, that breaks are good, that breaks recharge us, they re-energize us. And we're not taking enough of them. And consumers themselves know that. They want more breaks, they want more leisure time, they want more time for self, time with loved ones. And so in fact, one brand, Nestle KitKat, have used their have a break, have a KitKat tagline since the 1950s. And they've always kind of positioned their product as a perfect product for having a break. And this is one of my favorite commercials they had. It's called You Are Not a Salmon. Have a look at this.
The salmon. The salmon spends its life relentlessly striving to get upstream. With ceaseless endeavour, it fights the currents of massive rivers, drags itself over rocks in shallow water, forces its way up huge waterfalls, never stops, never rests, just battles and battles its way upstream. Finally, heroically, it reaches its goal, and it's absolutely knackered. And it dies. Remember, you are not a salmon.
And so this idea that, you can fight and keep going, but what's the point? And don't be feeling guilty about taking breaks. Breaks are important. And so from a brand point of view, you need to have a look at your brand and business. And it really doesn't matter what you're selling. How can you position what you're selling as a way for consumers to take a breath, to take a break, to relax, to take time for self? Because these are things that consumers really, really value. And if you can leverage what you're selling within that space, then you are connecting with relevance to the consumer. The second one I want to talk about was that idea and yearning for looking inward. So we all want to understand who we are. And there was a time, and it was up until recently, we were very capitalistly projecting an outward version of self. So it was, look at me, look at what I own, look at my Nike clothes, look at my brands, look at my car, look at my possessions, look at me on social media, this is who I am. So we kind of curated this avatar of self on social media saying, this is who I am. But it wasn't who you are, because it's just an outward projection of who you are. More recently, consumers have started to be interested in who they are internally. So it's more of philosophical curiosity. Like, who am I? Who actually am I? And so things like The joy of staying in is a really interesting way of looking at this. So we have the JOMO, which is the joy of missing out, but the joy of staying in is also a real thing. And again, it was born out of the pandemic a little bit, maybe. It's also an evolution of the Blue Dot consumer, which I've been speaking about recently. And in fact, the link to my last video is here if you want to look at more on the Blue Dot consumer. It's about having everything coming to you. So the joy of staying in, instead of going to all the effort of going to a restaurant, you can just have Just Eats or Deliveroo come to you. Instead of going to the cinema, you can have Disney Plus come to you. Instead of going out for a date to a bar and a restaurant and having that awkward conversation at the taxi rank, do you want to come home for coffee? You can just do Netflix and chill. In fact, it's so popular, Ben & Jerry's even have an ice cream flavor called Netflix and chill. Stay in, everything comes to you, the joy of staying in. And so while the pandemic forced us to stay in, there certainly is a joy for many people of doing that now. And it's destroying industries in a way. So the nightclub industry is collapsing all over the world. There are, hundreds of closures every month, because the Gen Z generation, while they do go to nightclubs on occasion, they don't value it the same way as we used to. And there's lots of reasons, but one of them is the joy of staying in. They socialize in their own homes with each other as friends, but also it's because the digital connection allows them to meet outside of the nightclub. If you went to a nightclub to meet people, members of the opposite sex, the same sex, and you can do that today by sliding into their DMs on Snapchat or Instagram or on Tinder. And so you don't have to use the nightclub anymore. So you can do this from your own home. And the joy of staying in is a very interesting space. And also you can see that inward look as opposed to outward look, even in the health and fitness industry. So there's kind of a slight move away from the gym and yoga classes towards breathwork, mindfulness, meditation, sound baths, all things that are more introspective. Like, who am I? What is my meaning? What is my purpose? And those things are things that are consumers are curious about, and they're looking for brands to connect with them in that way. They're looking to invite brands into their space to share that meaning and purpose. So successful brands are brands that have a strong meaning and purpose. Look at USwim. USwim is a swimwear brand from Australia, born out of Perth. And they use this really stretchy fabric that means that every single one of their swimwear items fits everybody. One size fits all. And more importantly, it fits you all year. So it's a whole brand around female empowerment, no matter what shape or size your body becomes during the year, winter, summer, it changes. Our swimwear will always fit. But the brand is all around in female empowerment in terms of meaning and purpose. Here's another one, Billy Footwear. Billy himself was paralyzed when he was a teenager and lost all movement beneath his chest. And therefore he found it very difficult to do many things in life, but he managed to solve them all except putting on his shoes. He could never put on his own shoes, and so he designed a shoe that zipped around the front that meant that everybody now can put on their shoes. If you're too old to reach your feet, if you're too young as a kid and can't tie your shoelaces, if you have mobility issues, again, it's a really inclusive brand, which is their meaning and purpose. And lastly, this one, this is Rubies in the Rubble. This is a UK condiment brand which uses fruits and vegetables that are going to be discarded from farms to never make their way to supermarkets because they're ugly or they're not fit enough to sell, but they take them, so they save all that food waste and they make these beautiful condiments. So again, it's a sustainability, circular economy type brand. Again, a brand with meaning and purpose. So ask yourself, in terms of your brand proposition, are you giving customers joy? Are you helping them look inward? Are you giving them a break, helping them with time and space, helping them to relax? And are you a brand that has meaning and purpose that they can invite into their life to share their meaning and purpose? If you're ticking all those boxes, then you're winning the race for relevance with the modern consumer. Until next time, I'm Ken Hughes.